Good morning, good evening, and good afternoon, wherever you are in the world, and welcome. Welcome to the infinite way where spirituality meets humanity. And I am so honored to have Barbushe here with us today on our show for this episode. This is an exciting moment for me. This is the gentleman, the community leader, the person who participates in film, the artist who created a beautiful, beautiful mural with his students, with honoring myself, Bukeka Blakemore, and Anita Dixon. I'm just so excited to have you on board. Why don't you take a few words to truly introduce yourself the way you deserve to be introduced?
Thank you so much, Leah. My name is Barbushe Maina. I am a creative in Nakuru, and I assisted Nakuru in joining the UNESCO Creative Cities, and I also run a hub called the Urukan Arts and Culture Hub, which is in the community. I have I have so many other titles around me. I was just looking at the award on the wall. I received the Heroes Award for the Lake International Pan-African Film Festival in 2022. I'm also the curator of the Urukan Hub. I'm also a trustee at the Nakuru Players Theatre. And I am also the vice president of the Committee of International Organization of Folklore and Folk Festival in Kenya. I'm also the chairman of the Settlement Executive Committee, which deals with the development projects in the community. So that's simple introduction of who I am.
And there's no way that I could have captured all of that at all. So I'm so grateful. Thank you for that introduction. And we could dive right into your work, but I'm going to deviate just a little bit because you are this beautiful, shining light in the midst of so many people's lives. It's like the unsung hero. And okay, I may be saying a lot, but this is how I feel when I met you and was introduced to you and all of the things that you bring. And I really want to go back. I want you to take us back. I want you to share with us you as a young man coming up in Kenya, discovering your way, finding your way. What inspired you? What took place in your life to bring you forward to be this advocate for community, this advocate for youth, this artist, a little bit of everything. Will you share with us a little bit?
Oh, I would definitely share that, and I'd be very happy to share about my journey. My journey starts in Nairobi, where I was born, the capital city. I was trained in the Utalii Hotel, and then I had a stint working at one of the hotels called the New Stanley Hotel, which is one of the leading hotels in Nairobi. And while there, I was extremely excited about the job of doing catering, hosting events, and all that. And the hotel saw the passion that I had. And since I spoke a little bit of German then, because that's the language I trained, so they made me in charge of all the German-speaking guests coming to the hotel. And then I started becoming very creative and doing exciting things that the hotel noticed what I was doing. And when I worked there, I was not given an off. There was no off for me. They wanted me there every day. And the ideas I shared, like one time I brought in an idea about going over the 31st to the 1st January when we had a ballroom. We had a ball for that. And then I designed the entrance. I put a small bridge, and under the bridge I put mirrors, and I put water lilies. So it looked like people were entering through a bridge into the ballroom and out into the new year. So the idea really caught up, and many other things. And I was tasked by the hotel even to be in charge of the president's breakfast whenever he was going to meet the director of intelligence at his residence. So I was the person in charge of that breakfast. I was in charge of most of the executives. So I made a lot of contacts and a lot of networks then. But that didn't take very long because I moved growth. I went to do accounting, which didn't really work with me. And then after accounting, after doing my accounting, I got very disappointed because the job I got was paying less than the job I had left, and even after going training. So, and doing the audits and all that, I got so bored about that. And then since I had that cultural interest, especially with the Germans, and all the time spending my time at the Goethe Institute, I got pulled into because the German, the Goethe Institute and the French culture, they are neighbors. So I got pulled into the French culture where there was a play. I just walked in and I said, I'm looking for a play. And the director was like, wow, you're godsend. Someone just dropped the script this afternoon. So they gave me the script. And from there on, everything turned. That's sometimes in the around 1985 because then I appeared on my first billboard advertising for Gillette razor. That was my first. That's my first billboard that I got into, and then
Wow.
yeah, during that time, being in a billboard that was heavy, and I was living in the ghettos in Nairobi. I was not. I didn't come from a very rich background in Nairobi. Though my parents were living in Nakuru, but they were doing very well in Nakuru. They were making
Okay.
money. They were very okay. But I was surviving my way. And after the first, I became a celeb, an instant celeb, both in Nairobi and in Nakuru. That's in 1985. And then, so I got myself involved in advertisements. I became a model, and then I got lucky and got into my first TV ad. I was advertising Honda Civic, and that was big for me. Yeah, and for everybody was like, wow, how can someone coming from the ghetto, from the east side of town, how can someone be on a TV as a commercial on a commercial ad? Because that was a preserve for the people who come from the, from the West End, people who did well. And then now
Yes.
I became very popular with the people. Everybody in the community, all the young people were looking up to me. And then since I was in the art industry, and there were films coming, there were commercials coming, and all that. So every evening I would come, whenever they need extras, I would come to the community and tell the young people, tomorrow in the morning, I need like 5 people to go to be extras. So I'd find them very well dressed up in the morning, ready waiting for me, and we'd go. So that increased my popularity. And then I started having leadership qualities in the community. At one time, I was even a vice chair for the ruling party, but it was just made up of very young people because then only old people were involved in politics. But this time
Right.
we had as the young people in the community. So this one went on like that, and then I did a lot of. Now I started really getting involved in the arts in Nairobi. And I also got a stint. I became a presenter, classical music presenter for the national radio. So
Uh-huh.
I presented the classical music, I presented jazz, and then I also did radio theater. And then I now got deep into the theater. So we formed a repertoire group. So we are doing productions every month. The first production, we are the people who did the first production and then we had a house full at the plenary of the Kenyatta Conference Center, which hosts about almost 5,000 people. So that was the first,
Wow.
yeah, it was first production ever even to be advertised on TV. And then we had a house full. The management of the center decided to give us a small hall where we were doing our plays. So during this time, we couldn't do plays without being censored. So you had always to take the play to be censored by the government. And unfortunately, the government people, whatever they looked at, they never even read the script. They just went flip through the pages looking for if there's the word government or there's the word politics. If you had that, they just throw the script away.
Yeah.
Then, yeah, so it was very tough for us because there was a lot of plays we wanted to do, but the censorship was. So we joined forces with the politicians who are agitating for change, the constitutional change. So we became now the force that came in. We were the most forceful people to bring the changes on the constitution because we defied the government and said we are not taking the scripts anymore for vetting, and we started doing productions in the community, making awareness about the constitution. Doing that several times, we got arrested, but we got released. But we kept on doing that until the constitution was changed. And from there on, I just kept on doing my art, doing productions. Then I advanced and became a director. So when I became a director, I was sponsored by the French government to do a production in about the history of one of their writers. We are celebrating that. It's about the storming of the Bastille. The writer was the play was called The Marriage of Figaro, and the writer is Beaumarchais. So we were celebrating 100 years of that. And while we were doing that, the play we did it was sold out. We were having 6 shows, and they were all sold out. And that production also gave me, it really catapulted everything, and everybody was surprised that I could be able to direct such a play and been able to bring in the audiences. Then that year, another producer came and poached me and asked me to become the director of his production, which we were doing in aid of charity. In fact, we were raising money for the mayor's Christmas tree and several the children's homes and home for the elderly. So that was our turnaround as creatives, starting to do work, even to raise money for the city council. And you see, many people expect the government to give money, but we were raising funds for that. And then that one was a game changer, because when I was doing that again, I got involved in I did so many commercials, advertisements for TV. I did one for TV for Sportsman, which was for Sportsman Africa, which was we had billboards across Africa and on many TV stations.
Yes, it's incredible. It's incredible. And I'm listening to you, but all of these aspects of you, all of these pieces of you are the makings of a great leader, because the youth are inspired by you. The community is inspired by you to be able to, like we talk about, I kind of got arrested when I was doing my theater and my arts, but that's devastating. To make a statement and to make a stand and to have the strength to make a stand in what you say, what people are learning from you is huge. And many people wouldn't take that risk because they would be petrified that they would never get out of jail. And to motivate people and to stand in your truth so solidly that you are willing to risk everything for it is huge. And if you could take us in a moment, just even with that, what was it that needed to be said that the people were missing when you were doing productions that made a statement?
People didn't really understand their rights. And then the government had really oppressed people. So we were trying to show, and even the change of the constitution, we really participated a lot in the making of the new constitution. So we also picked up articles in the constitutions, which we moved around, trying to make people really understand their rights. And we became very defiant because now we believed in the constitution. And then that one now also made the people in government just to let us, like they didn't want to really get involved, in arguments with us because we really understood our rights.
Right.
And then I just didn't mention that some time back, around when I did the first billboard, I also was able to I was managing a group called the Mystic Zingaro.
Okay.
The Mystic Zingaro was a group which was led by a Congolese, and this Congolese, he had come from Zambia. He was a band member of a famous group called Mosiotunya, which was touring around Africa then with the people like Osibisa. I think you heard about Osibisa. Then there was Mosiotunya. So this guy was in Nairobi and he was stranded in Nairobi, but he was a very good drummist. So I chose to support him play his drums, and then I started looking for gigs for him in hotels because I was very well connected with the hotel managers and all that. So I started hosting gigs for him. We did our first gig also at the National Museum. We'd been given 15 minutes, but his performance made us become the resident band for the museum. And from the Mystic Zingaro, that's the band that led to so many young people now getting interested in playing the drum. And yeah, so we started having people coming to the theater, playing the drum, learning from the master drummist. And during that time, I also got connected with the Festival Mondial in Holland. So I was their agent in Kenya. So I was scouting for talent. So every time they came, I would already assemble some people, especially people in the communities, in the ghettos. That's where I looked for talent. So I would be able to get talent from the ghetto, make activities in the ghetto, and the Festival Mundial really supported and really made us be able to start something which is an enterprise called the Drum Cafe, the Kenyan version of the Drum Cafe. So that one also grew and it brought in a lot of young people now playing the musical instruments. And in fact, that time it was interesting at the National Theatre because when the performers came, one would come very early in the morning at around 10 and would start playing probably the shakers. Another one would come, play a drum. But when we got to 3 o'clock, it was a whole ensemble. And the performance was always awesome, the way they played the music. So we created that culture of the traditional dance and traditional music. So, and many people who do the traditional dances and music, most of them give credit to how I was able to organize gigs for them and encourage them to perform these. In fact, my colleague always does tours in Europe. In fact, he takes 5 groups in Europe every year, and that's part of what now we want to bring now to Nakuru.
I was going to say, so you're the eye that sees the talent, and you see the talent everywhere.
Yes. But I don't play any musical instrument. I'm not a good dancer. I have 2 left feet. But
oh my goodness. And for me, I was always opposite coming up. I was the person, I wanted to play the drums and I wanted to dance. Right? So I played the drums for a little while. I got okay at the drums, and then I'd go and I'd dance. And then I'd just dance. I wanted to be the best dancer that I could be. I was always that person that wanted to do a little bit of everything. I didn't want to stick with one thing. So that's funny.
That's how like I'm also an art curator. I do a lot of but I myself, I've never painted. I've never done any drawing, but I've got a good eye because during that time that in the 80s, I also met some of the famous artists we have in Kenya. And I was really thrilled by the kind of work they do. I was mesmerized just looking at their work. So I was always involved in all the openings around the French Cultural and the Goethe Institute and the museum. So I was always available. I enjoyed the openings. So I became very close to the artists that every time they were going to do a new opening, I was the courier. I was the person carrying their artworks, running around town, taking the new exhibition. And then that's how I started getting that touch and feel of the art. Until at one point, I owned a gallery. I owned a gallery, a whole floor, and all the artists in Nairobi were bringing their artworks to me because I had a lot of connection for selling the artworks, especially for companies, land buying companies, land selling, whenever
And
they
you're
were.
not doing this anymore? It sounds like you're phenomenal.
No, I'm still doing it. I'm still doing it. That's
Okay.
why. That's how I have this hub. That and now let's come to Nakuru.
Okay.
Because,
Nakuru, please, yes.
yes, because I came to Nakuru by default. I came back to Nakuru by default. Before coming to Nakuru, I was working in this street children rehabilitation project, which we had qualified, and it was being funded by the Swedish government.
Right.
And the reason they funded us is because our concept was very, very interesting, because we said we want to live with the street children in the streets first. And I lived with them for 3 months, sleeping with them in the streets, which was something else. Oh, that and this was deep in the ghetto.
And this is really significant, and I want to highlight this too, because what happens is that people will see, let's say, street children, and they want to always approach helping from the outside in. But what's fundamental is that we need to help from the inside out. So how can you relate? How can you talk to? How can you inspire if you're the outsider? Right? You have to be inside. You have to sleep the way they sleep. You have to eat the way they eat. You have to talk the way they talk, so that you can truly understand their world.
Yeah, and now the interesting bit about this is that the street children we worked with came from an urban and just a semi-urban place. This was around the slaughterhouse in Nairobi. It's called the Goreti Market. That's the major slaughterhouse that we have in Nairobi.
Okay.
So these street boys, they used to work for the women in the market. So they would be sent around to fetch water, to do this. So they were all the handy young people that we had, 14-year-olds and all that. And some of the women who are doing business, they used to sell them the gum, the gum that they sniff. So it was also a very big business for them then. And so when we approached and looked at the setup of that space and living with the children in the streets, sleeping with them in the streets, we were paying them 350 shillings every day as an allowance. But again, we stopped because now these 350 shillings, some of the women took the boys in their homes, because that time 350 shillings was quite a lot of money then.
Right.
Yeah. So some of them took them into their homes and now owned them. Some of them married the young boys. And we felt like, no. So we cut off the allowance and said we'll be depositing the allowance in their banks, and we will give them after the project. And then that was another problem, because these people don't trust the bank. They've never imagined putting money in the bank. So it was again to educate them about the bank. So we had a big challenge at the market, because now we had reduced the workforce for the market women. And now they told the young people that they should avoid us, that we've been sent to get their hearts. We want to steal their hearts, and we want to sell their hearts. So the street boys, one time all of them disappeared. So I had to look for them again, to talk to them. They agreed to come back. And then a week later, there was a big fight between the street children and the touts at the bus stop. Because now these street children were dressed up nicely. They started getting dressed up nicely. They were having they knew they had money in their pocket. And the touts were feeling very bad that these people have advanced. They've gone one level above them. And one night they planned to come and rob them. So we were sleeping in the corridors the way we did. And then we got word that they were coming to attack us. So we moved further deep into the slaughterhouses, and we went where the hay, where the hay was stacked, hay for the cows, and we hid under the hay. So these other guys came looking for us in the night. It was very scary when you're lying under the hay and people are standing on top of the hay, and they wanted to set fire on the hay to smoke us out. But one of them said, no, let's not set fire. Let's just pour the, I don't know what you call the waste from the cows.
Just the waste from the cows. Yes, I understand.
Yeah. So they poured all that on us, and then they left. And then in the morning, the street boys went and got the stinging nettle, and there was a big fight at the bus stop between the street boys and the touts. And then the area chief came and told me to pack off. He doesn't want to see me around that place anymore. And we had to really renegotiate. And then we talked to the boys. We moved them now from that center. We moved them to a different space. So we were paying their fare to come into the space. Okay. But they were very tricky. Whenever they came to that space, because we had asked them to stop smoking, doing the glue, sniffing the glue.
Yeah, sniffing glue and smoking and everything else. Yes.
Yeah, so they would come very early in the morning with their glue, and then pass through the fence, and then they had dug some holes on the compound, and then they would come and put the glue in the bottles in the compound, in those holes they've dug. And every time we're in class, after about an hour, they would say like, oh, they have a headache, they want to go outside and relax a bit, and then I would just let them go. But I later noticed that every time they went at the same spot and lie down, and with their head covered, they would lie at the same spots every time.
Yeah.
So I realized, oh, these people, that's where they're hiding the glue.
Right.
Anyway, that project went on. It went on successfully. We took the young people to Ethiopia to learn to meet the acrobats in Ethiopia, because we saw they had an interest in Ethiopia. So they devised a production that included acrobats and all. And nowadays they are wonderful globe-trotting acrobats. It's not easy to get them nowadays. Okay. So that was the project I was doing then in Nairobi, and then I relocated to Nakuru. So I relocated to Nakuru by default. Since my parents lived here, and they wanted me to come and take care of the family business. I turned things around. And so.
And what was the family business? What was the family business?
They just invested in property, different properties. Yeah. Okay. So where I'm setting up the hub is one of the properties just next to the lake, but the community around here is not. It's more ghettoish, and this place has been totally neglected, because the imagination of the African mind is that this place is next to the national park where there are animals. So they feel like that those are animals there. In fact, the dump site had been brought here at one point. That this was just in the park. So that's sometimes how people mismanage things. So they never looked at this as but for me, every time I came here, I was like, wow, they're animals. I can just walk around here, I can see animals. I'm in nature, and I could see a lot of talent, a lot of creativity from the people around, and they had a culture. They had a culture which I felt like I was coming from Nairobi as a model, living there, the first being life on the first lane, and here I had come and got very attracted to the ghetto. So I formed a youth group here, and it was an environmental youth group with the people around here, and most of the things was just to establish the nature trail that I've established now, reimagine the space as a community space. So whenever I talked about these things, I looked very alien because I was talking to people who have lived together and they did not accept change. So for many years, I've just been talking about the changes that needs to be in this community. But up to a point that people started telling, I want to, whenever I want to speak, and people would dismiss me and tell me, "Oh, we don't want to hear about your vision 2030." So every time I stood in a meeting and I want to talk, it said everybody would whisper, "Oh, vision 2030, vision 2030." So since 2000, that's when I started working in the community around here, and I've been talking about the same thing, the same thing. At one point, I was the honorary warden around the park because I was really involved in managing as a community managing the park. So when I started doing a lot of community work, engaging the community in trying to translate and interpret the opportunities that we have here. That's when I realized as the tourists were coming towards the park, there's a community, as I told you, there's a ghetto community. It's people in hardship. There's a lot of poverty around here.
Right.
So I noticed that whenever they got to just at the entrance of this community, the tour drivers would ask the tourists to close up their windows. So just see people hurriedly closing the windows. Then I was like, wow, why does it happen like this? Why do we have all these tourists passing here, going into the park, and then coming out of the park, and then just passing this community? Yet there's a lot of talent here. There's a lot of interesting things that they can engage with the people here, and there's they could create a lot of jobs here. So I approached the government and asked if I could do branding of walls around there just to change the perception of that space and start. And as I was always talking with the people in the community about how we can change that. The branding was approved by the Kenya Wildlife Services, and it was about, there's a committee called the Park Action Committee, which deals with the community and the park. They approved that, and it took 4 years after the approval for us to start the job. And the challenge was the quality of paint that we wanted to use. Our system, we have very corrupt people. So everybody looked at the budget and was like, "What? If you're buying a tin of paint at 1,800, I got offers of someone saying he has paint for 200. Others, the highest I got was 300 shillings. And I said, no, I don't want to use that paint. So that took like a whole year after the project had been approved. It took a whole year before we started the project. And when we went to buy the paint, they asked me they'll put the paint in their store. So I was going every morning to requisition the paints that I want. And then they got fed up and told me, please, can you take all this paint away from here and go and use it in your community? So I did the painting for the 36 walls. I engaged the artists who were around. Artists came up. There was now a movement of visual artists which formed itself. And then we also have videographers who started using the backgrounds as background for videos. Musicians, most young people started doing shooting their films there. I also attempted to create village guides, village walk guides, but again, the system, the challenge was some politicians thought that I wanted to become a politician. So the politics came in, and I could not handle the politics. I kept off. And then during the same time, my colleague had just come from South Africa, and he wanted us to to run a Festival of Peace and Arts Peace Conference, a festival and conference. That was just after the tribal clashes in 2007. So he asked me to be the coordinator for the Drum Cafe, of which I took. So we spent 2 years planning for that. And we got a lot of responses internationally. We got several groups coming from international, the international arena. We had wonderful speakers from across the world who came to do for the conference. And what also really catapulted us much more is that since we had planned this for the last 2 years, and the government wanted to celebrate the International Peace Day, and we had approached them if they could support us. So they asked us, can we now use your concept to celebrate and we quite readily agreed. And the African Union also came by and also wanted us to invite them as our sponsors, which we did. So the festival did very well. It was that was 2010, and then in that 2010, I was also invited to do a presentation about the project I was doing in Nakuru, the art project I was doing in Nakuru. So that was my first time to do a presentation to a board of creatives, and my presentation was what won, and I became the Kenyan delegate to the African Creative Economy. Yeah, so that's where and this project Urukan, that's the project I presented then. And then from then, I have been now presenting the Urukan project in all the trainings, the UNESCO trainings, about 10 of them, 10 trainings that I participated. And I was always slotted 15 minutes to talk about the art city, the Urukan art city, and how we are imagining and the kind of work we are doing.
Yeah. So I'm gonna pause you there, and I want to ask a question, which is this: no one has a successful journey like you do without the underlying faith or spirituality underneath it. Talk to us a little bit about how you're led, how you have your knowing, how you know from your heart what's the right person to embrace, what's the right situation, and how to navigate it. There's got to be that inner compass that you're not talking about. That leads you to have such a successful life.
Yeah, well, one thing is that having appeared on the billboards and the TV commercials and all that, and in fact, one of the commercials I appeared in, the one I did for Honda Civic, that one was brought during the opening of the World Cup in 1988.
Oh wow!
And, yeah, so it was brought during the first match. You know, just when just before the kickoff. So
that's huge. That's huge.
Yeah, it's huge. And in the place I lived in Nairobi then, everybody screamed, everybody ran out of their house. And you know, that's the time when if there's one TV, the room is packed. Yeah, everybody used to come in that house, and people, it could get so packed that you could see sweat dripping on the walls. Yeah, the way people are sandwiched in the watching, especially during the World Cup. So that was huge. When I appeared, everybody was so excited everybody ran around for a few minutes and then they came back. So that one really put me in the map very well. And it also, and then the ideas that I kept sharing with people about opportunities. There's a time when the former president Kibaki invited us, and he really challenged us, and he challenged us like, what do you think about what could you do 5 meters from your doorstep? And he said, if you cannot think about how you can generate money and what you can do 5 meters from your doorstep, then, but if you can be able to do that. And so after that challenge, what I started doing is especially when I came back to Nakuru or even in Nairobi, I used to, in my free time, I could just go out my house and just start doing a general cleanup of the area, picking up papers, picking up all that, and just picking up all litter and cleaning up the space. And then when I came to Nakuru, I was doing a lot of that. Every time I came to this place in Lakeview, and sometimes I could I could clean the whole street. It's like about like 800 meters. I would just wake up in the morning, and then I didn't live here. I lived with my parents, but I would come very early in the morning, around 7 o'clock in the morning with my rake, and just start pulling litter along just on my own. And people would like, hey, how much are you being paid for doing this? And I kept on doing it on my own. Even today, people just, even right now, people know I don't like seeing people littering. Although here it's the common thing that people do. But
here too in Angola. Yes, I understand. I don't like seeing it at all. But you led by example, and that's huge. That's huge because they're like, if you're not getting paid, why would you do that here for us? Why would you clean everything for us? And then they're not even taking care of their own space. So it's huge.
I did this, and then I went back to Nairobi. When I went to do the Drum Cafe Festival, I stayed in Nairobi for some time. And then when I was a delegate for the African Conference, I was assigned to lead the Audience Development Committee. So some of the strategies I used about audience development was to do Kikuyu vernacular plays, because that way I realized that the Kikuyus really enjoy watching plays in vernacular, but there were no more. There were no more of those vernacular plays, and now bringing them to the National Theatre, it would look tribal, but what I was looking at was just how do I bring more feet, more eyeballs to the theater? So it didn't really matter. What really mattered is just to have an eyeball walk into the theater. If there was going to be any other production, at least they're going to see that poster and they'll be able to follow up and go and watch other plays. So that was the strategy that I used, and it really worked. Because we brought
and that's really, really big. I'm going to interrupt you here just a moment, because what we're not talking about is the fact that how many tribes does Kenya have? You're talking intertribal, getting people to work together that don't typically work together. And our cultures are actually different. Now, I know that Kenya is a special place in my heart, okay? My mom was Luya tribe, okay?
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and so Luya, Kikuyu, Maasai, I mean, there are many, many different tribes, each with their own belief systems, each with their own traditions, each with their own way of operating, and bringing everyone together is no small feat.
Yeah. So I realized, because there were other people who are doing productions which catered for all the other people, or all the tribes. I just focused on the Kikuyu.
Okay.
Because I focus on them, and we really by the time I stopped and moving to Nakuru, we had an audience of about it was bringing in 800,000 shillings on a weekend.
Wow.
So it was big, because it forced us to have like when we are scheduled for one show, we had to squeeze time to have two shows, because the number of audience had really increased. So that was one of the strategies I used for audience development. And then I moved back to Nakuru. Now I was coming back to establish the hub here in Nakuru. And this being a residential space, I had tenants who lived here. So when I came and I wanted all of them to move, then I realized that I didn't have money. I could not survive. So I just let them be, because they were paying me little whatever they get. And then we lived together for some time until when now there was COVID. Because everything now got broken down. Some of my tenants left, about 8 of them left. So the level, and then the ones I remained with were not earning. In fact, most of them, I started now feeding them. And then even after COVID, I kept, some of them stayed, they didn't have work, they didn't have, so I kept feeding them. And it got to a point I was like, no, now this one, it's, because there are some who've never paid since COVID until when I asked them to leave. So then I realized, why don't I just turn it around and just make it a hub and struggle through it. So I transformed, slowly, I've just been transforming it slowly, the constructions and all that, and even talking with the community about the reimagination of this space, letting the community understand that they're so lucky to be living next to the park, and there's a lot of opportunity within them that they can earn a living. So the most unfortunate thing then was that during the COVID time, everybody was at home, and so people were advised to take walks and all that. People were getting bored in the house. So whenever they came walking around the park fence, the young boys around here didn't have a source of income. So they started mugging people, and then that became their source of income. And the people in the community, some of the tenants didn't want any changes because the rent levels would increase. So, so they supported the young boys to mug. And wherever the young boys mugged and all that, they spend the money with the people in the community. So it reduced the number of visitors coming in. It was terrible because when the visitors stopped coming in, now they started coming to us. And I was very instrumental. I was the point man of trying to stop all this and following all these young people, even to their homes. If they snatch somebody or they mug somebody, I had to make sure that they return that. I made because most of it was happening just outside my house. When I'm inside the house, I could hear people being mugged, screaming, and all that. And it's the same guys. And then I made reports to the police, but unfortunately, then the police were not putting people in the cells during COVID. Yeah, so they just tell you, please, it's gonna be virtual. So these people, the young people, felt like, after all, it's just gonna be virtual. So, and I was at the police station every day. Up to a point I said, no. I can't spend all my time at the police station reporting. Yeah. So I formed a team of sober people. We came together, and I sold the idea of having this as a nature trail and the reimagination of the space and how we should start allowing and encouraging visitors to come, because that way So, but it's been quite a struggle. It's been quite a struggle. One time, the young people came outside my house night, and they wanted to torch my house. So they were about 10, and they knocked the door and then I just came out. I said, "What's the problem?" They said they're going to burn my house. I said, "Fine." I took a matchbox and gave it to them. I said, "Okay, burn it." And I stood next to them waiting. And then I think they got scared. They just fizzled out slowly. But now the magical thing is that those young people are now my guides. They are now the people who are now the people who are doing the village walks. In fact, the other day I was asking one of them to go to the city center, and he said, "No, I can't go to the city center. There's so many thieves. There's a lot of crime in the city center. I'd rather just stay here in nature, look at the birds and all that." It's wonderful, the transformation. Seeing them, in fact, seeing the gang leader being the person who's now leading the transformation. The other day, I had some Swedish students who had come visiting, and I asked him, "Can you walk these girls around showing them about the nature. I have never seen a happy man like that. After the walk, he's been walking with his hands outstretched and saying he's never spent a lot of time with a white chick for and
Yes.
he's very excited about that, and he's feeling like, oh, after all, he he can be able to have conversation with people from and and I really like it. I'm wanting them to start a musical troupe. I'm still
Yes.
waiting for my two djembe drums because I want them to be. So I think by January they will have started the troupe, and
Yes.
I'm just involving these people. But
Yes.
it had been challenging. We had newspaper reports every day about this community, about the
Yes.
muggings, about the fights, the gunfights, the knife fights, the shootings. It was just crazy, crazy. And you can't believe that this is the safest place now we have in this town. We only have
That's
lots of,
amazing.
yeah, we just
That's
have
really
lots of,
amazing.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
So we're almost past an hour.
Oh, we are
It's okay.
there.
It's
Oh,
okay. It's been a wonderful conversation. It really, really has. If you were to give advice to that person who wants to be a community leader and
yeah.
knowing what your journey is, what advice would you give them? What would be that last little bit that you would leave them with?
It's just never give up. Never give up. Once you see the prize, just aim for the prize. It doesn't really matter whether the money is there or not. For me, it's not even the money. Like, I've spent my own money. Like my daughter, she's in Form 4. If you mention anything about government, she just gets totally wild. She doesn't want
Yes,
to hear anything because she knows that I've been spending my kitchen budget in doing things for the county. I never
right.
wait for I never wait for the government to give the support. Once I see there is an intervention, I just go out of my way and make sure that whatever intervention just has to happen. So I either get support from friends, or I work, do some other work. I get the money. I just put the money in the interventions.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So never give up, and that's a beautiful message to leave our audience with. So if you want to donate to some of the efforts that Barbushe is doing, we will have it in the description. We will make
Yeah.
sure that you'll be able to read the description right here on this podcast so that you
Yeah.
can reach out, you can donate, you can
Yes.
communicate if you want to, and have that conversation with Barbushe. Barbushe,
Yes. Yes.
thank you so, so much. Thank you for
Yes.
sharing your
Yes.
journey. Thank you for
Ah,
sharing all of the stories. I think that they're really important because what happens is that there are other community leaders, there are other youth leaders who
yeah.
are going through different iterations and they're navigating and finding their way. And when they hear our stories and they hear what you did and what you had to go through,
Yeah.
it's important. I understand that a lot of people will go, oh, well, you're living in Angola and you're living in a nice area. I've lived in every aspect of Angola. I've lived,
Ah,
in the countryside where the rats are crawling on top of the roof and through the house. I've lived,
yeah.
in the nicest parts by the embassy. I've lived
Mm,
all over Angola, and to truly, truly understand people,
mm,
you have
mm.
to experience them.
Yes. Yes.
And if I didn't take away anything out of what you shared with us, is that you are a person that truly experiences the people. And then
Yes.
when you experience people, then change can come from the inside out. It's not coming from the outside in. What happens is a
Mm,
lot of people are enthusiastic and they come as foreigners and they want to project what they know, how they are, what their culture is onto people. But if you
mm,
truly want to inspire change, if you don't take anything out of this, take
mm.
the time and experience the people and get to know the people and fall into the rhythm of the people. And when you fall into the rhythm of the people, then you can inspire change because you are walking in their shoes. You are not projecting from an outside perspective saying, well, in my world, it looks like this. It should happen the way my world looks like. That's called colonization.
This Urukan concept, when we were invited at the annual conference in Santos, I had been allocated 6 minutes to go and talk about the Urukan project and how it's engaged within the UNESCO Priority Africa programs. So it's a wonderful concept that's really translating a people at this moment in life.
Okay. So will we have that information down in the description box also?
Yes. You'll have all. Yes.
Excellent. Barbushe, thank you. Thank you for sharing your stories. Thank you for joining us. What an honor and a pleasure it was to have you. I am so grateful. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm so grateful. I've never been as happy as this. I think now I'm starting to walk with my head high, held high. Yeah. And talking to my muse.
Well, I'm honored to be one. Any way that I can inspire or assist.
Yeah, and that was also an inspiration to the young people who did the work. I wish you were there when you were doing it. It was a lot of fun. Yeah, it was a lot of fun.
My goal is to be able to come visit sometime and stand right there by that beautiful mural in Kenya.
Yes.
I would love to do that.
I'm sure you'll really enjoy that.
Yeah.
You're welcome. You're very much welcome for that.
Thank you. Thank you again. And to our listeners, if you enjoyed listening to the beautiful unveiling of what it takes to be that community activist, that person that just motivates and inspires people, that lighthouse, that beacon of light that is ever shining greatly, you've just met unsung hero, Barbushe. Thank you. And if you liked what you heard, please share this episode. And if you like what we're doing and how we're having these conversations, please subscribe. And we want to thank you again for enjoying another episode of The Infinite Way, where spirituality meets humanity. Take care for now, and we'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.